Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm just beginning at chapter 5 here, and I'm going to continue all the way to the end of chapter 7, highlighting just a few things that I thought we should notice that reveal some interesting elements about Holden. On 47 to 48, this is just the first couple pages in, where he makes his snowball, and I didn't throw it at anything, though I started to throw it at a car that was parked across the street, but I changed my mind. The car looked so nice and white. Then I started to throw it at a fire hydrant, but that looked too nice and white too. Finally, I didn't throw it at anything. And I think what you might say here is we start seeing that Holden has a kind of issue with messing stuff up. Like, he's not necessarily your typical teenage boy where, they might just take extreme joy out of just destroying something, and Holden is not that way. Um, I thought that was a pretty significant image to illustrate that because it's also pretty harmless. Like, it's just a snowball, but it's pretty significant for him. So keep an eye out for those places when he's like, really uh, worried about messing anything up. I mean, it could connect to his hygiene, could connect to some like tendencies to be a little bit compulsive about certain things and kind of obsessive. But I think in another sense it can connect to a really large theme throughout the novel, which is just that he likes to try and protect things that are innocent, whatever. But that's very traditional, and we don't need to necessarily belabor that point too much. But there's another one here on that page at the bottom of the same paragraph there where it says, "People never believe you." Like, wow. Like, how about that? That's how he feels. That's his world. And I think people in this sense could mean adults, um, because it's the bus driver that didn't believe him. He generalized, but I think we could assume that it's probably just adults, and that's pretty significant because we've known thus far he kind of has weird relationships with adults. On 49, just the next page over, when he's talking about how Stradlater, I'm sorry, Ackley, Ackley was opening keep talking in this very monotonous voice about some babe he was supposed to have had sexual intercourse with the summer before. Now, we know that he has slang understanding. Later on, he talks about Stradlater and the time, giving him the time, and all this stuff. Um, and in this weird sense, when he's describing what recognizes Ackley is probably making up, he uses a very formal anatomical language, and it honestly reveals, as I think we'll see in other places, a definite lack of comfort with anything sexual when it comes to Holden. And, again, that could definitely just connect to his personage. Like, is he mature in every respect or just some? I just finished reading all the way to the end of chapter 7, and I just love the way he leaves Pensy. Oh man, what does he say exactly? He says, "Sleep tight, you morons." It makes me think of like Macaulay Culkin. Like Macaulay Culkin leaving a prep school. "Sleep tight, you morons." And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that takes some guts. Some serious guts. And just that disregard, in my opinion, is mature as well, because he doesn't care what other people think. That's a sign of maturity often. But he's not mature in every respect, trust me, I'm not saying that. Guys, also on this same page, when he starts talking about Allie, there's a huge tone change. When he says, "He's dead now." Boom. I mean, right there, boom. It changes and it remains the same all the way to when he says, "My hand still hurts once in a while when it rains and all. I can't make a real fist anymore, not a tight one. I mean, but outside of that, I don't care much." That's where the tone resumes his sarcastic kind of very dry, is this type of person that commentary that he's been having. Um, of course, the windows in the garage, it's key. He's understating it completely. He's like, "I slept in the garage that night he died, and I broke all the goddamn windows with my fist just for the hell of it." Just I felt like having sausage instead of pepperoni on my pizza. Real nonchalant, super understated. And one thing that I love is he says, um, uh, it was a very stupid thing to do, I'll admit it, but I hardly didn't even know I was doing it. And you didn't know Allie. Um, I think Holden has an extreme power over his mind. Some might be able to say, well, maybe he's kind of able to dissociate. And honestly, people who can dissociate, or willingly or unwillingly, typically have some kind of unworked out or unresolved issues that I mean are just kind of wearing on them. I'm not judging Holden and saying um, like I'm like or psychoanalyzing him and diagnosing him, but in that sense, I mean to be able to literally disconnect yourself that much, where you could break every window and then stop at the car window, not because he wanted to, but because his hand was busted. Like, oh my gosh. I mean, that is incredible. I even tried to break all the windows on the station wagon we had that summer, but my hand was already broken and everything by that time, and I couldn't do it. That's just gnarly. It's like his hand was mush, or the pain was too much, or he just couldn't get enough force, and that was pretty gnarly. On 53, so this is just the second page into chapter 6. The hypocrisy and irony of what Stradlater says here. He says, "God damn it, you always do everything back-asswards. And no wonder you're flunking the hell out of here. You don't do one damn thing the way you're supposed to. I mean it, not one damn thing." He's the one cheating. He's the one cheating. He's the one who's getting someone else to write an assignment for him, and he's the one telling Holden he doesn't do one thing right. I mean, it continues as well. Oh man, there's one more thing here. Maybe it comes up a little later. But I was gonna say there was one more key example of Stradlater's hypocrisy. Just along those same lines. I can't seem to find exactly what I wanted to, but just notice that. I mean, it's just you have to recognize that kind of hypocrisy within Stradlater, and I would argue hypocrisy within the adult world or the system, because often cheaters do prosper. You know what I mean? One of my favorite quotes in the entire book, right here, guys. On my page is the top of 55, but it's just a couple in. When he's talking about when he's talking to Stradlater and he's all mad trying to find out what he did with Jane, and he says, "I ignored him. I really did. I went right on smoking like a madman." I went right on smoking like a madman. That just stands out to me every time I read it, and I just wanted to make sure that you guys noticed that, because I don't know, it's just a really odd, way of expressing something overstated, I'd say. How do you smoke like a madman? So that always stood out to me, and I definitely want to hear about some of your quotes there. On the same one, Holden gets really violent in the way he's fantasizing about killing Stradlater. He says, this is when he's about to punch him. "All I know is I got up from the bed like I was going down the can or something, and then I tried to sock him with all my might right smack in the toothbrush, so it would split his goddamn throat open." And it connects back to the garage there, by the way, when he says, "It probably would have hurt him a lot, but I did it with my right hand, and I couldn't make a good fist with that hand because of the windows he broke." And so it's a very, oh man, it's just, it flips like a switch. And he's also very defensive of not only Allie. He ripped up the composition right in front of his face, and then he's also really protective of Jane. I mean, he's pretty extreme too. On that note, he has a lot of suicide references that are really starting to pile up. Right on the page right before the end of the chapter here, he says, "He probably was scared he fractured my skull or something when I hit the floor. It's too bad I didn't." And you see this kind of death wish pattern starting. It's pretty frightening, and you might say to yourself, "Well, Mr. Reed, maybe he's just exaggerating again. He does that a lot." Well, he's pretty specific in some of these, and I want to kind of show you guys some of these places. The canasta line in the first couple pages of chapter 7. do you feel like playing a little canasta? I mean, his face is bloody. He's got blood pouring out of his nose. I'm imagining um, Fight Club when Ed Norton's character goes into his boss's office and beats himself up and just gets all bloody, and he is so composed, and that's the same type of thing here. I mean, the level of disconnect due to insomnia in Fight Club, I don't think is too far gone in Catcher in the Rye, because Holden is, he's got a lot on his plate. I don't know his sleeping patterns. I really don't. I'm not trying to connect it that literally, but I think in that sense where we have this disconnect between your physical well-being and your mental state. Oh man, it's just like Tyler Durden. That is for sure. On the very next page, we get our first reference to a window. He says, I didn't answer him. All I did was I got up and went over and looked out the window. I felt so lonesome all of a sudden I almost wished I was dead. Ah, another death wish. And we get it next to a window. Let me continue on here. On 63, the same thing he says when he's talking about Ed Banky's car. Every time I thought about it, I felt like jumping out the window. And you're saying, dang, Holden, are you just like exaggerating and making light of suicide again? And I would say right now, maintain that thought. I just want to make sure that you're aware of these references of not only his desire to die, but also the windows. All right, so please keep that in mind. I don't want to go into any further detail. On the next page, we get a really creepy vision of Stradlater, and it's not about Stradlater, but it's about what Holden saw. All right, this is so super awkward and totally wrong. He says this, talking about how he hates the way Stradlater treats girls. He says, what a technique that guy had. What he'd do is he'd start snowing his date in this very quiet, sincere voice, like as if he wasn't only a very handsome guy, but a nice, sincere guy, too. I damn near puked listening to him. His date kept saying, no, please, please don't. Please. But old Stradlater kept snowing her in this Abraham Lincoln sincere voice, and finally there'd be a terrific silence in the back of the car. That's like total rape description. I mean, like that's the extreme end. But it's really, really uncomfortable. And Holden is like, it was really embarrassing. I don't think he gave that girl the time that night, but damn near, okay? I mean, it's like that's horrible. I mean, that's so awkward. If you try to empathize in that setting, like who would ever want to like, I mean, it just totally ruins things for him. I think it would ruin things for anyone, and it also just recognizes how he's seen some really gnarly stuff. Okay, his brother died of leukemia. All right, we got that one. Now he's like, we know he's been in the car with somebody who is violating their date, and it's just like, wow. Also, hey, check it out. Let's not be so like soft on Holden here. Why didn't you do anything, bud? You know what I mean? Why didn't you do anything? So, I mean, there's always that. I'm going to hit a few more things here and then wrap it up. Existential autonomy, I thought, on the next one when he says, I was just going to go down to Mall Brossards, but then all of a sudden I changed my mind. All of a sudden I decided what I'd really do. That's huge, you guys. I mean, like, if we were watching a movie, the song would change right then. Like, you know, it would have a, you know, an upbeat, you know, really, it would just, oh man, everything would, you know, building, because he's making this big decision. He's not just going to be pushed along, you know, like a piece of wood with the tide, you know. He's making that decision, and that's really, really key. On the bottom of that same page, he makes this really odd reference to his mother. We haven't heard very much about his parents, but he says, my mother gets very hysterical. She's not too bad. She's not too bad after she gets something thoroughly digested, though. Now that's interesting. I tend to think that that's humor, but regardless, if you were to think about his brother dying, who do you think also took that hard? Who do you also, I mean, is probably still dealing with that? His mother. I mean, it's probably the worst thing you can imagine, losing a kid. The most physical pain you could ever experience? Yeah, just imagine that. Just imagine how you'd feel if you lost your parents, and magnify that. Like, it's not trying to diminish. I'm just saying, like, from my own experience of thinking about losing my parents, That's different than losing a child because those people are adults, the parents, and they've had an opportunity to live their lives. But something like a child, it's just you have this drive to protect them. And so, I mean, his mother, I think, saying very hysterical, that's an understatement. But to Holden, he's describing it accurately. He doesn't understand. So that's key as well. Maybe why his parents are absent. You know, let's ship them off. Maybe they have issues with themselves. The top there, he says, my nerves were shot. They really were. That's pretty key, as we know this story is being told from the present. Um, Talking about the presents about his ice skates, that was definitely seeming like a spoiled remark. She bought me the wrong kind of skates. I wanted racing skates. She bought hockey, but it made me sad anyway. Almost every time somebody gives me a present, it ends up making me sad. I have no idea why, but that's something to say. You get a present and you're sad? That's not how it's supposed to work. And then lastly, I've already mentioned that, but sleep tight, you morons. Guys, I hope you're enjoying Catching the Ride thus far. I love sitting here talking about it. I wish we weren't so pressed for time. I hope these little videos help you. I know they're not visually engaging, but I'm hoping you're following along in your book with me. So take care, everyone, and we'll see each other soon. Bye.